What's up guys, it's me Jamar Dawson from Remnant Outdoors. Hope you're doing great today. I wanted to talk about the war in Ukraine, specifically a lot of the weird, baffling, head-scratching, bad tactics that I'm seeing, particularly on the side of the Russian military. For a military that's supposed to be a professional military, one that is supposed to be number 2 in the world, they're making a lot of weird blunders and errors, and it's causing them lots of casualties. Now, I'm not going to be reviewing stuff that millions of people haven't already talked about. This is from leaked footage online that's all over the internet, mostly on YouTube, and I want to show you guys some of the things that I'm seeing that just look really amateurish. Let's go ahead and dive into them right away. So the first thing I'm seeing is there's a lot of armor, a lot of tanks, a lot of troop carriers driving around either by themselves or without any type of infantry cover. I do see them driving around in groups of 3, like a couple of armored troop carriers and then like a tank or 2, but there's no infantry support. You need infantry support in an active threat area to kind of fan out and cover the tanks as the tanks are covering the infantry. There's going to be guys, especially in a guerrilla warfare urban situation, that are hitting you with anti-tank. This infantry is supposed to go out and get those guys, right? But that's not happening. The tanks are just rolling around and they're getting picked off. I mean, you can see in all these little videos here what is going on, and they're just getting annihilated. They're getting isolated in many instances, and then they're getting blown out. What tanks need to do is move fast through areas, but even if they're moving fast, if there's just one of them, these folks, the Ukrainians, are tracking them with iron sights and hitting them. So bad tactics, zero infantry support, and there's going to be a lot of casualties as a result of this terrible tactic. Another thing that I've seen, and this is like gun number 1 error, like when you are like your first day training on how to use a gun, you learn this. You never sweep with your barrel another person unless you are shooting at a target, right? You never cover a person with your barrel. You either have it at the high ready or low ready, your gun pointed at the ground. And in so many instances, you're seeing troops, Russian, Ukrainian, but a lot of Russians covering or barrel sweeping their own dudes. If something was to startle the troop and their finger pulled the trigger while you were sweeping a comrade or whatever, it's a casualty. Just bad. Okay, another thing that I'm seeing is a lot of patrols not checking corners and angles. I am not a tier 1 operator. I've never been a tier 1 operator. I have designed things for the military, I'll put it that way, when I was working in my previous job, but I'm certainly not an expert, but I know enough about room clearing and checking your corners and things like that. And these guys aren't doing that. You can see in some of these videos, they're walking up in these little villages where they're occupying. You have 3 guys, they're arguing back and forth with older folks, and no one's watching their back. Folks can just come up and smoke them from behind. They're not even really checking in the structures around them. Just horrible tactics, just amateurish. I mean, that's a way to get you utterly dead. Another thing I'm seeing is civilians being way too casual. And I know this is more of a Western thing where we're a little bit more antsy and we're a little bit more aware about our surroundings and as it relates to being safe, right? But this is supposed to be a war zone, right? I mean, you could see in this video, there's dudes on bikes and dudes kind of just chilling and taking a stroll. And there's a guerrilla fighter, or a Ukrainian, most likely a Ukrainian military fighter, because he has the advanced anti-tank weapon. He strikes the armored troop carrier, and there's an explosion, and it crashes. You got dudes riding on bikes right next to that. What if they thought those dudes were on the bikes were the guys striking them? And they probably laid some fire down. So you need to stay away, And then if you look in some of these videos in the occupied cities, yeah, it's brave, the folks protesting in some of these occupied cities within Ukraine and having a show of solidarity. But even when the Russians deploy like concussion grenades or whatever, like riot control grenades, and start shooting in the air, then they start shooting at some of the civilians, and it looks like some people may have died from that based on some of the reports I've seen. You want to be away from that. Even when all that stuff was going on, you see people in these videos just kind of walking away. It's just a little too casual for me. Another instance is while the tanks of the Russians are driving one way, the civilians are driving the other way or driving with traffic, and they're getting you can see in this video, struck by Russian armor. It's just a little too casual for me. If I was in this situation, me and my family would be hunkered down. Y'all wouldn't see us, y'all wouldn't hear from us unless it was time to strike somebody, right? That's when you'd hear from me in the last few moments that you had left. Another interesting thing I'm seeing is long columns, and you guys have heard this, long columns of Russian armor coming in on roads, like a singular road. It just doesn't make sense, like on a major highway, like they've completely have air superiority and they have superior control and security of that area. It's just not. You're seeing they getting hit by guerrilla strikes, they're getting knocked out, they're getting turned around. It's just amateur tactics, and because there wasn't a strong flow of their supply lines to begin with, now it's very segmented. You got troops kind of trapped in various places. There's only a few ways in. They're taking these highways and they're getting picked off. If the Ukrainians had a lot of attack aircraft, shoot, you had a couple A-10 Warthogs, baby, come through there, they would just clear that long column of tanks and armored vehicles in about an hour or less, man. From the time they said, hey, they're coming, from then to an hour later, all those would have been smoke and trash. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're all driving together, you know there's guerrilla fighters near you, and you know you're being watched by drones. It does not make sense to me. It's outrageous and mind-boggling. They're losing a lot of equipment, a lot of Cold War era equipment, but it's still a lot of equipment and troops, plus the morale is continuing to sink. Another thing is lack of cover during frontline operations. I mean, I see this from the Ukrainians, I'm seeing it from the Russians, a lot of people who you could probably tell on the Ukrainian side who don't have a lot of experience. There's some people who have just volunteered a couple weeks ago and now are fighting, but you got to take cover. You got to take the proper cover, and when you're going to a certain area, you got to kind of look ahead and see, is that cover or is that concealment, and is this going to be adequate cover for what I'm about to be doing? There's a lot of folks firing various anti-tank missiles just standing out in the open, and I just hate seeing it. I cringe. You got folks high-fiving and clapping after they just shot a tank, and it's like, you shoot and move, you stick and move, right? You don't just stand there and celebrate. If the Russians had things together, they'd have infantry all the way around them anyway, and as soon as a shot went off, they'd have a dedicated marksman or something in that area looking to take some shots. So a lack of cover during frontline operation is just blowing my mind on both sides. And then lastly, no camouflage for parked armor. There's not a lot of thermal imaging going on here from the drone footage that I'm seeing. They're using a lot of kind of commercial grade drones on the Ukrainian side. They've gotten some Turkish drones that have been really, really high performance for the cost. They're having some kind of night vision and things like that. But in terms of like pure thermal, I don't see a whole lot of that to detect heat signatures on there at a high level. So you would think the Russian forces would camouflage their anti-air in other vehicles, and they're not. You could see these commercial grade drones flying over forests and other areas where they have poor camo, and they're just blowing them out of the sky. It's just ridiculous. There's no camouflage. They're just parking them near a tree. These drones that are probably $300 are spotting them, and the Ukrainians are just blasting them off the planet. So in closing, just really sloppy tactics. I'm really baffled by what's going on here. I really don't understand. I think the Russians probably thought this is going to be easy. We're going to roll in, we're going to install a puppet government, and we're going to be out within the first week or so. But just amateurish mistakes. It's like they can't pivot. I realized after analyzing a lot of this stuff that the Americans and Russians fight in different ways. We've been fighting for a couple of decades. We use small teams, surgical strikes. The Russians, they've never really been good at that. They're good at steamrolling, right? Shelling something into oblivion and then moving to the next target. And so they're struggling. They really are struggling. They're making a lot of mistakes, which is good for the Ukrainians because that means the Ukrainians have a really good shot of just continuing to embarrass and just dismantle the Russian military that doesn't want to be there, right? Every day they're there, it's more that they don't want to be there. So, props to Ukraine. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna probably do some more. This is gonna be like a series of videos on this war, and God bless everybody who's involved. I just want there to be a peaceful resolution, a quick resolution, because we don't want to continue to drag this thing out 5-10 years where we all get potentially dragged into this thing, right? I certainly don't want my son dragged into it. I feel for the people over there who are really having their livelihood taken away for foolish reasons and ulterior motives. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe. More stuff to come soon. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to you soon. Peace.